You want to know how this all started? Fine. Picture this. A woman so perfectly convinced of her own righteousness, standing at the edge of my property with a glare that could fry an egg, and, honestly, probably the last bit of goodwill in the county. You have 30 days to get rid of these disgusting, filthy animals, or I'll personally see to it that this board finds you in a foreclosure. That's the first thing she ever said to me. Not a hello, not a neighborly wave. Just straight to threats, lawsuits, and, my personal favorite, a declaration that my place was turning her respectable community into a third-world pigsty. The audacity almost made me laugh, almost. The perfume she was wearing could have peeled paint off the walls. Her name was Karen. I know, it's almost too on the nose. But she wore that name loud and proud, like a badge of honor, with a name tag so bedazzled you'd think she was running for president of the church bake sale. And there she was, arms crossed tight as a bank vault, parked so aggressively in front of my split-rail fence I half expected her to try annexing my mailbox next. Meanwhile, Pat and Benatar, my goats, stars of this so-called violation, just stood there chewing, staring her down, looking about as threatening as a couple of retirees at the park. I was leaning against a fence post older than most of the homes in Creekwood Estates. This place, this little slice of land, 10 acres left from my grandfather's farm, had weathered storms, droughts, and the kind of family drama that'd make reality TV blush. And now, apparently, it was about to survive a one-woman HOA hurricane. I took a sip of coffee, real slow, and gave Karen my best, yes ma'am, voice. I didn't raise it, didn't get angry. My old drill sergeant taught me years ago, never let him see you sweat. That woman was everything he warned me about after I got out of the Army. The type who thinks the rules are just a fancy way of saying her wishes. I listened to her tirade, let her get it all out, and thought, I survived Afghanistan. Surely I can handle a rhinestone-wearing warlord in cul-de-sac camo. She finished her speech, which sounded like something rehearsed in front of a mirror, and then she stormed back to her spotless white SUV. I watched her go, turned to Gunner, my old horse, who's seen more than any HOA president ever will, and said, well, buddy, looks like we got ourselves a live one. He just flicked his tail. That's the thing about animals. They keep your ego in check. Humans are the only ones who make up rules about acceptable living, as if the land cares. Now, if you've ever wrestled with an HOA, if they've made your blood boil, sent you in circles over mailbox colors, or try to fine you for breathing too loud, yeah, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit that like button, share your stories, or just let me know you're watching from a safer distance than mine. Because, trust me, you're not alone. And you're going to want to hear how this particular neighborhood queen met her match and lost her crown in the most spectacular way. See, this land isn't just any land. It's legacy. My grandfather built a life here after World War II, when GI loan was basically a handshake and a prayer. He raised cattle and my dad, and a little hell for good measure. When the developers came in, wanting to build what would become Creekwood Estates, Grandpa sold off all, but this last patch said they can have the fields but not the heart. When he died, that promise became mine. After 20 years in the Army, building things up and blowing them down on 3 continents, I came home. All I wanted was peace, dirt under my fingernails, and a place for the animals nobody else wanted. Sarah, my wife, and I, we don't run a big operation. We take in rescues. Goats, a few chickens, Gunner the horse who moves slower than Congress, but has a bigger heart. It's our little sanctuary. Our land's been zoned agricultural since before anybody ever thought to install a gate code on this street. That means no HOA rules, no board meetings about petunias, no Karen, at least not in any legal sense. But Karen, as it turned out, hadn't done her homework. She thought her fiefdom extended to every blade of grass within sight, didn't check the plat maps, the zoning, or the part of her own deed that said her authority stopped at her property line. That was her first mistake. A week later, official warfare arrived. A certified letter, thick enough to use as a doorstop, threatening fines for aesthetically displeasing environments and noxious odors. They had photographic evidence, zoomed in on Pat's face like he was some kind of criminal mastermind. The fine? $500. With a friendly note, it would double every 30 days. And just in case that wasn't enough, there was a lovely handwritten note from Karen attached. You will comply or face the consequences. It was all so official, so delightfully dramatic, I couldn't help but laugh. Sarah read the whole thing and just rolled her eyes. Can they do this? She asked. We're not even in their HOA. I spread the papers out on the old oak table my grandfather built and said, they can try. I spent the rest of that day digging through the kind of paperwork that makes a lawyer weep with joy. Deeds, zoning laws, the original developer's master plan. Every scrap of evidence showing, clear as day, that our land was a sovereign state. I sent a polite email to the board, attached everything, and told them, respectfully, to back off. I thought that would be the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. See, I made a mistake. I thought this was a problem that could be solved with facts, logic, the law. But with Karen, this was never about the law. It was about control. Her response? A masterpiece of condescension. She called my documents irrelevant. Said my land status was an archaic loophole. She doubled the fine for insubordination. Apparently, that's a thing if you squint hard enough at the bylaws. Now, I owed them $1,000, and the threats were getting nastier. That was the moment I stopped treating this as an argument and started treating it like what it was, a siege. I created a folder on my computer, Operation Pasture Storm, logged every letter, every email, every threat. I bought security cameras, pointed them at every inch of the fence. If Karen wanted a paper war, I'd bury her in evidence. The fines piled up. $500 for the goats, $200 for my old fence, $300 for improper storage of my granddad's tractor. My favorite was visual nuisance, because apparently a red barn is offensive if it's older than Instagram. Each letter went in the binder. I never responded. Wrestling with Karen was like wrestling a pig in mud. Both of us would get dirty, but she'd enjoy it. I decided to starve her of attention. That's when the campaign went digital. Mark, a quiet neighbor who lived a few houses down, sent me screenshots from the Creekwood Estates Facebook group. Karen had turned me into the neighborhood villain, a defiant hillbilly polluting our air. The comment section was split between the true believers and a few who, quietly, wondered if maybe, just maybe, I wasn't actually in the HOA. Those brave souls got shouted down fast. Then things got ugly. One night, I checked the animal's water trough and found it bone dry, with a slick of oil on top. Someone had jammed the valve with a rock. My heart dropped. That could have killed every animal out there if I hadn't checked. I fixed it, hands shaking, pulled the security footage. Sure enough, a hooded figure had slipped over the fence, tampered with the trough, and disappeared. The footage was too grainy to ID, but the message was loud and clear. The next morning, I filed a police report for trespassing and attempted animal cruelty. The deputy was sympathetic, but realistic. No clear face, no charges. But, he said, it establishes a pattern. That was the new mission, build a case. I wasn't just fighting fines anymore. Now it was about defending my animals, my home, my family. Time to bring in reinforcements. Dave Riley and I served together. He's a lawyer now, land use, property, the kind of guy who actually reads the fine print. I brought him the binder, laid it all out, the land history, the letters, the Facebook posts, the police report. He read every page, then said, Marcus, this is textbook harassment. We'll bury them. But that wasn't all. See, when my grandfather sold the land for Creekwood Estates, he held back 5 of the best lots, right up against our place. But instead of selling them outright, he leased them, 99-year leases. And wouldn't you know, Karen's dream home was sitting on one of those very lots. Her castle was actually on land my family still owned, and that lease was expiring in 6 months. The terms? Simple. When a lease was up, if she didn't remove her house, it became my property. I showed Dave the paperwork. He grinned like a wolf. She's living in your house, Marcus, and she's about to find out what that means. The plan was simple. We'd hit the HOA with a countersuit for harassment, drag every bit of Karen's dirty laundry into the light, and then, at the perfect moment, serve her the notice to vacate. Legally, finally, and with a vengeance 100 years in the making. But we weren't going to stop there. Mark told me about other neighbors she tormented. The Millers, forced to pay $2,000 to fix a brown patch in their lawn during a drought. The Garcias, fined until they removed a yellow swing set too distracting for the HOA. But the real breakthrough came from Frank, a retired accountant who'd served on the HOA board until he quit in disgust. He had years' worth of financial statements showing that the HOA's landscaping budget, nearly 40% of dues, went to one company. A company owned by Karen's brother-in-law. We had her. Harassment, embezzlement, self-dealing. You name it, she'd done it. So, when the annual HOA meeting rolled around, we came prepared. Dave in his suit, Frank with spreadsheets, Mark, and a handful of newly brave neighbors. Karen opened the meeting with a slideshow of my goats, complete with health warnings and arrows pointing at my farm like it was Mordor. But when Frank asked about the landscaping budget, and when he revealed who owned the company getting all those checks, well, you could feel the air get sucked out of the room. The crowd turned on her, shouting, demands for answers, a recall petition. Her power just vanished. The next day, we filed our lawsuit. By lunch, a process server handed Karen the paperwork. By dinner, she had the notice to vacate. When she realized the man she'd been trying to run out of town literally owned the land beneath her feet, well, let's just say it's the only time I've seen her truly speechless. The fallout was biblical. The HOA board folded. Karen's lawyer dumped her. The community turned on her. And when a local reporter came calling, hoping for a story about a mean farmer, she got the whole truth instead. The piece that ran was brutal, exposing every ounce of Karen's corruption. In the end, Karen was evicted, her castle demolished, her car repossessed, her legacy a punchline at the block party. The HOA settled the lawsuit. New leadership brought real change, and the fear that had gripped Creekwood Estates finally lifted. People started talking again, sharing gardens, swing sets, smiles. And that empty lot where her house used to stand, we turned it into a community park. Kids play there now. Neighbors laugh, swap tomatoes, let their dogs run free. Sometimes, late in the evening, I sit on my porch and watch the sun go down over Founder's Garden. The goats graze. The air is sweet. There's peace, not the kind you get from enforcing rules, but the kind you earn by standing your ground. Here's what I learned. The bitter, necessary truth. Power built on fear and control is nothing compared to the quiet endurance of history, law, and simple decency. Karen never understood that. She thought the rules gave her power. Turns out, the only real power she ever had was the one people let her have. So, yeah, karma's real, and sometimes it comes with a legal notice and a wrecking ball. I got my land, my peace, and a few more gray hairs for the trouble. But the community is stronger for it. And as for Karen, I hope she finds a place where the HOA bylaws match her standards. And I hope, just once, she tries listening instead of shouting. But let me ask you, where's the line between defending your rights and becoming a tyrant yourself? Should power always come with limits? Or do some people just need to be taken down a peg? Have you ever had to stand your ground against someone like Karen? Tell me your story below, because honestly, the only thing better than winning a battle like this is knowing you're not the only one who's ever fought it.